So we did a long road trip with an electric car with a Tesla Model 3, and we collected some data and want to share this with you and hopefully convince you that driving an electric car on long road trips is affordable, it's doable, it's easy. So here we go. Let's have a look at all the notes that we took during this trip, and we collected those in a spreadsheet and made some averages, and I think we have some quite interesting numbers on distance that we did. We look at speed, average speed, temperature. We have taken note on the driving time and the charging time, the range, and the cost. That's the topics that we have. So let's start with distance. So one way for this trip was 2,082 kilometers or 1,300 miles. And we did this in 10 segments. So the shortest segment would be, in this case, 107 kilometers or 66 miles. And the longest segment that we did was 373 kilometers or 234 miles. So that was quite a long segment. Then the average speed of the whole trip one way to Portugal was 111 kilometers, so quite nice open roads. So looking at temperature, the average temperature was 10 degrees Celsius, 50 Fahrenheit, so that's not too warm. We had close to freezing as a minimum and a nice 17 or 62 Fahrenheit as a highest temperature. Optimal temperature would be an average of 20 Celsius, which would be 72 or something. Total driving time was 18 hours and 45 minutes, so almost 19 hours of driving. And the average segment took about 2 hours to drive, and the shortest one was close to 1 hour and 20 minutes, and the longest segment we did was 2 hours and 54. We did the entire return trip in 24 hours, so the total of 2,000 kilometers, 1,300 miles was done in 24 hours, a little more than 24 hours. Then looking at charging times, we can see a total of 3 hours and 57 minutes of charging, which is almost 4 hours of charging. The distance to the superchargers is quite limited. It's just you exit the highway, drive a minute or two in this case, and you enter a parking lot of a hotel and plug in. And the car suggests how long you should charge to get to your next charging point. Well, the next charging point is not necessarily the first one you have on your road. It's usually the second or the third one, because there is a lot of charging points on the highways, a lot of superchargers on highways. So you can play with that a little bit. But the car suggests a reasonable distance, usually to the second one that you will meet on the highway. So the car suggested, in this case, a charging time of an average of 33 minutes, with a minimum of 20 minutes, which is quite short, and a maximum of 55 minutes. It will suggest you to charge longer if your battery is close to empty, and it will suggest to you to charge a bit shorter, like 20 minutes or something, when you have more range left on your battery. So actually we stopped a little shorter than the average suggested time. So we stopped on an average of 30 minutes with a minimum of 20 minutes and a maximum of 42. So 20 minutes is not a lot of time when you stop at a fuel station and fill up your car, then you go inside, you go to the toilet, you buy something to drink, you walk back to your car. That's roughly these 20 minutes. Of course, if you're running, you can make it 10 minutes, but 20 minutes is quite a normal, comfortable stop. The charging time that the car suggests is something that you can actually play with. You can go longer, you can stay shorter, and you can charge more or less, depending on what it is that you decide to do. You want to have breakfast, you can stay longer. The car suggests to stay long, but it's a boring place. You can leave earlier, because there's plenty of superchargers on the road, and you can stop the next one instead of the one after that. So we had a suggested charging time of 55 minutes that we turned into a half an hour stop, because, you know, it's just not a nice place to stay. And the other time we had suggested 25 minutes of charging, which became 42 minutes because it was nice, and we took another cappuccino. So it's quite flexible. Looking at battery range, which is what we have left when we arrive at a charging station, at a supercharger. Once we aimed at the minimum, which is 0, but actually below 0 there's still more energy, and it's like 30 miles or 50 kilometers that you can do. 226 kilometers or 140 miles is obviously a lot before you start charging, but when somebody needs to go to the toilet or when it's time for lunch, you can stop earlier. And the average was 92 kilometers or 57 miles. You don't need to be empty when you arrive. When you leave, the car actually suggests what the range is that you have. So also there's a variation, and you can decide how much it is. You can see that on your mobile phone as you're sitting inside drinking a coffee. You can see how much the car has, and when you unplug it, it says to you in the car on the display how much kilometers or miles you can do. And on average, we had a little over 400 kilometers or 250 miles, with a maximum of close to 500 kilometers or 300 miles, and the minimum of 365 kilometers or 227. So you can play with that. You can charge longer or shorter, so you have more or less range depending on it's the end of the day, or you have to get somewhere, or that's completely up to you. The cost of charging, of course, is also important. The cost of charging is quite cheap, I would say, at Tesla superchargers. It varies a bit per country. France was 24 cents or $26. Spain was 29 cents or $31 for a kilowatt hour. So the other charging can be a bit more expensive, and we had a total charging cost of 111 euros or $122, which I think is roughly half of what it would cost with a fuel car. The road taxes were even more than the fuel cost, the battery charging cost, the electricity cost, I should say. So that's all for now. I hope we convince you that driving electric and charging is easy, and you can do really long road trips quite comfortably with the electric cars of today. So I hope you buy one soon. I hope to see you in the next video. All the best.